I go it, I do it, I love it, and I prove it. Do gotta do it. I prove it. Do you prove it? I prove. I approve. I approve of you, people.
Good evening out there. Of course. Oh, now my microphone's. Oh, yeah.
It's working.
It's working.
It's working, people. Am I working? I hope I'm working.
Yeah, you're working. Looks like you're working.
It looks like I'm working.
Looks like you're working it.
All right.
All right, man. So it's Tuesday. It's Wednesday night. It's Scuba and The Ry. We're starting a little late today because work ran a little late and wanted to go get food, so we went out for some ramen.
I got sushi.
Yeah, he got sushi, ramen. And we're back and we're gonna do our show and let's have some fun. Got some fun things to talk about tonight. We got the new Uncharted movie that we both saw. And gonna have some interesting back and forth on that. Some games we've been playing. I have been working on Horizon Forbidden West. Ry has been working on Pokemon Legend Arceus.
Yep.
The new addiction for Switch. And we got some
Emphasis on addiction. Yep.
Seems to be a lot of that tonight.
Yes.
Addicted to ramen, addicted to Horizon, addicted to comments on some movies. But anyways, so real quick, pay the bills, do the things.
Do the things.
Shout out and a thank you to Sirenscape for background music and soundboards. We've been using them since the entire length of the podcast. They're a great resource for different sound sets. This is a custom sound set I'm using for the podcast. Go to sirenscape.com for more info and to check out their library of sound sets and their apps that you can download to make your tabletop experience more. Also, if you're new here and you're enjoying it, please be sure to hit that like button. If you're new, hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification, be notified when more videos coming out. Talk about that again. But help support the show by sharing this out and letting people know it exists. If you want to do more, there's a Patreon page you can check out, patreon.com/scuba studio.
Yep.
Where you can go and consider being a patron and support the studio. All the help is appreciated. For patron members, there is an after show that we record after the main show.
For you.
So we'll talk about that more at the end. But now that we got the bills out of the way and doing all those things, let's talk about what we're gonna. First, what's up? How you been? Been a couple of weeks. Last week was crazy. I had to work really late, and it was
super late. Yep.
Yeah, I had to work late. In fact, I was actually working when Ry showed up because we weren't sure we were gonna do it, or we were thinking we were gonna do a short show, and then it just
just show up in hopes. If not, I had my book to read. So
yeah, and then we went out for wings. So yeah, good times. So that's pretty much been that week. It's been work and tax season and all the fun things that go with that. Now it's some peace and quiet a little bit and carry forward.
Yes, sir. Just moving on.
What about you, Ry? Have you gotten through that stack of books that your teacher was like, "Hey, you got to read these 30 books in 30 weeks"?
Well, I read them as they come, and every week's a different book. And so this week is called The White Bone. It's about elephants. So I'm just curious on how this ties back to post-colonial theory, but I think I have an idea how. And like I've mentioned before, theory books are hard for me to read, but when it comes to a novel, I'm more engaged because it's tangibility. You've heard me say that, tangibility. So it's interesting.
Okay. So break that down for me. Okay, so a theory book versus a novel. Obviously, we think of a novel, we're thinking of a story that has a beginning, a middle, and end, has character growth and development, and a story we want to see the conclusion.
Yeah.
Theory book is not doing.
No, a theory book is, they go in depth for a particular idea, item that's either tied into something modern, something social, something political, something environmental. But what makes it harder for me to read a book that focuses on a lot of theory is that there's no tangibility. You're bringing out all these concepts and all these interesting situations and quoting different things, but you're not grasping it to something. And for me, you're not grasping to an item, to a place, to a thing. It's just going to keep it. And then just kind of some of the books seem kind of just seems like they're just very I can't even think of the word right now, but they all pretentious. That's the word. It's like some of the authors feel pretentious on the facts instead of actually detailing what is interesting and important about the theory. So that kind of turns me off. And then big words do. Like if I just don't get the big words, I just kind of keep going and just like whatever. So yeah,
Okay, that's fair.
yeah.
All right,
But
so
it's
so this one,
never it's
this one
never the concept.
now is this one a novel or a theory?
This one right here is a novel,
Oh,
and it's a
okay.
novel about elephants. So it's focusing on a certain like pack of elephants and their lives and their world and stuff, but you're doing it from their perspective. So it has certain like lingo that describes their environment, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like Lion King, but rated R. So there you go. That's all I can say.
That's really funny because you're talking about. Well, let's compare it to the Lion King, which had to deal with which the main characters were all predators,
Yeah,
but it was a PG, it was a G movie.
yeah.
To that book, which is about herbivores, and if it were a film, it would be R rated.
Oh yeah.
That
I
strikes me
can
as
I can I
a
can tell you
little ironic.
like it dives into yeah, it is rated R. So when it involves all the things that you think,
Goes to
yeah.
show you, predators are cuddly and herbivores are
It's all
downright
about them
scary.
grass eaters. Damn them grass eaters.
Ah,
So yep.
alrighty. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into it. All
All
right.
right.
So, alrighty. So tonight, our first one, real quick, we're gonna highlight. We're gonna go over this one. This is a dog. This is a film that just came out. Channing Tatum is the lead on this, which is really
Okay.
cool. But this one's more of a character piece kind of story. This isn't what we normally have seen Channing Tatum do for films. This is another one of those post-war kind of slice of life stories. Am I
You're touching up on it. You're touching up on it. Like it is like a slice of life, but more like a buddy road trip kind of film.
like a
So
Turner and Hooch kind of deal, like a Beethoven kind of deal, or
no, it's
more
like a buddy road trip, like to like
Rain Man, something like
yeah,
that?
like that, but it deals with a person and a dog. So and Channing Tatum plays Briggs, who was a U.S. Army Ranger who has been deactivated because of certain mental issues, and
PTSD.
yeah, so he's trying to get back into the field. So his uh, his superior said, okay, if you want to get back into the field, take this dog to the funeral of her former handler, which is being buried in Arizona, Nogales, Arizona. So he has to go from their base to Arizona, and
Where
if
does
he
he start? Where's the starting point?
Washington State.
That's not
So
terrible.
it's a road trip, buddy road trip of these two like unlikely pairing that travel on this unorthodox journey, which is the typical like foundation for a buddy road trip. But what makes this film very fun and very entertaining is the unusual circumstances that bring them together, because not only is Briggs dealing with his own PTSD and his own issues with the military, but you start to realize on this trip he has other issues that he's dealing with personally and familial, which also ties into the dog, who the dog's name is Lulu. She's a Belgian Malinois, and she is also a victim of war because she was a dog that was part of the troop, which was actually part of his troop. So the guy that's being buried was part of his group as an army ranger out in the Middle East. So
Cool.
what you have is a typical buddy road trip, but what makes it is the relationship and the camaraderie between him and the dog. So when
Okay.
they come across certain circumstances, you have dramatic and comedic effect, but what makes you really enjoy the film once you get past all the dramatic and comedic motifs is that personal touch and them kind of like helping each other, helping them understand their own like PTSD and personal issues, because there's an issue with the dogs, but as you come across certain characters in certain situations later on in the film, it helps build up that personal touch and characterization of their own guys.
Okay.
So
So what do we call it?
overall, it's a fun film. If you're a fan of like dog movies or buddy road trip movies, it pulls it together, has a very heartfelt message and very warm, everlasting ending. 3.5 out of 5 matinee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. It was kind of quick and rapid fire because we're going to get in. We're going to talk about this next one.
Can I rapid fire one before that? Before you do it,
Sure.
it's like 5 minutes. I know you don't have a photo, but
No, I didn't grab the photo.
yeah,
But
Death of the Nile, which came out the weekend prior, which is a murder mystery sequel to one of the movies that you liked before, Murder on the Orient Express.
yeah,
And
Agatha Christie novel.
yep,
This one, again, Kenneth Branagh is directing
yep,
and starring.
as Hercule Poirot, and it's another murder mystery, but this time he's brought upon a boat on the Nile River, and he's brought into this little interesting dynamic between Lynette Ridgway, played by Gal Gadot, and her husband Simon Doyle, who are being stalked by a certain individual, and it leads to this interesting dynamic which pulls Poirot onto their ship with the rest of the cast and crew because she feels like something's going to happen. Which, being a murder mystery, all the plot points move the characters around, put him on the boat, something happens, and he's out there trying to figure out the issues. So, if you know murder mysteries, it falls along that typical play. There's a murder, you have your usual suspects, but even when there's that typical foundation, it's the environment because it takes place in Egypt and also on the Nile, and also
And it's a period piece.
yeah,
We're talking
it's
like 1920s.
yeah, right between World War One and World War Two. So what happens is that once you start, the first half in the build up is very lethargic and very monotonous, but it's needed to build up the characters. So once you get to the murder and get to the investigation piece, that's where everything ramps up. And then you have a lot of red herrings because what seems to be the obvious choice, it doesn't seem to be the obvious choice, but you still have that lingering effect, and that's a great job of Kenneth Branagh's directing, where it makes you second guess the murders and all the other twists and turns. So eventually, when everything comes around full circle, there's a humanistic element to the reveal.
Okay, so what'd you call that one?
Overall, it's a fun murder mystery. If you love the Agatha Christie films or murder mysteries, check it out. 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Average theater discount. Now
we'll get on to the fun one.
Dun, da,
Let's
da.
talk about Uncharted, the movie that has been in development purgatory for a decade.
Yes, decade plus 4.
We finally got it done during pandemic, 2020, 21.
Yep.
And now it's out and hit theaters, and this one,
I gotta pull my sleeves up for this one because
I got some feelings on this one. So, check the review out on Ry Reviews. This is probably going to be a spoiler on this, so if you haven't seen the film, skip ahead or whatever. But we're going to probably spoil this one because for this review, I'm coming at it from someone who's played all 5 games, for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. I didn't play the PSP games because I never got them, but I'm familiar enough with the story. And Ry's coming at this from a film connoisseur and seeing how this kind of stands on its own for such an arguably iconic franchise for a decade.
yep, very iconic franchise, especially being a staple on the PlayStation systems.
Oh yeah, this is one of their flagship games. I mean, this is one of Naughty Dog's flagship IP. So pretty big. Now, this one is a retelling or a new interpretation of the telling of the Drake origin and first caper, where meets Sully and Chloe and goes on this kind of crazy wacky adventure. But from a film standpoint, it's like, if you've seen these adventure films, kind of know it's like, okay, there's the mystery, there's the villain, there's the finding of the treasure, and then there's the escape with the said artifact at the end. Very kind of very simple formula. It makes for a lot of really great films like Indiana Jones,
The Mummy.
A lot of great films. This one really kind of falls apart in a few places. The third act is great.
Mm-hmm.
The third act is absolutely great. It is probably one of the funniest, now craziest sequences I've seen in a film, and definitely something I don't think you could pull off in a game very well.
No.
Act 1 and Act 2, not so
Okay.
much. I think in some regards, they tried to do too much, and in other regards, they didn't do enough. I think they tried to do too much with some of the video game references. If you're a fan of the games, and I think they didn't do enough because the story doesn't really pull together. It doesn't really give you a lot of character depth and um, interaction. Like there's a certain chemistry that you just don't see with these characters that you see in the other genre. And of course, crossing genres is always a risky venture. Some work,
It
some don't.
it does. There's pluses, there's minuses.
So, Ryan, what are your thoughts just from on a film by itself before we really
From
dig in?
from my perspective, as like you said, you've played the games. I have the games, I just never played them.
Good. They're
I
really
will.
great games.
Yeah, I will eventually. Will
They're really great
eventually.
stories.
You know, there's
Really
another
great
game.
stories.
There's other games I'm playing, so
yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
But from the film perspective, like you said, when you're cross pollinating for different genres, just not just video games to film, but any kind of material, book to film or whatever. When you're adapting, you're going to make certain changes and certain liberties, which is fine because central point of a film is can you make a good story from beginning to end. With this one, I really, for the first two acts of this film, I literally wanted to throw something at the film, at the screen because it is some of the worst script writing I have ever seen in a movie since the movie that shall not be named. So the film centers around Nathan Drake, played by Tom Holland, and he's a street smarts guy from New York, and through circumstances, he comes across Sully, played by Mark Wahlberg, who enlists him on the search for Magellan's lost treasure. And quick setup, and they go. So the reason I say that the first two acts are terrible is because there's no kind of relationship building, no kind of character building or setting building. All it is just plot point, scene after scene after scene. Go from here, get this. Go from here, get this. And it's just a collection of scenes just to build up a connection to elements of the material instead of actually elevating the material within the median. So, a case in point, in the second act, they go to Barcelona and meet what's her name, Chloe. And then from that, when they meet, and then they have certain scenes and certain situations where they're supposedly trying to build up a relationship, there's just a hollowness to it. Maybe a couple good zingers, but overall, there's no character building. So when they lead into the adventure trying to find certain item to lead to certain treasure, it just becomes convenience for the plot of the foundation of the adventure just to get from point A to point B with no like kind of girth to the fondness or funness of the adventure. And it just makes you guess every little bit that's going to happen. The character's going to do this, they're going to find this, they're going to backstab here, there's going to be treachery here, and it just ruins the experience and the funness that is entrapped in sequences and action.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the first two acts, I was just like, I need to take these people back to script writing because they don't know how to build characters, connect scenes, edit scenes, and make you care about the characters. I will say this. The only thing that kept me going in the first two acts is Tom Holland, and this showcased why Tom Holland's a great actor because he's able to elevate a juvenile script that I literally wanted to burn at the edge of a stake for the first two acts.
Yeah.
Once it gets to the third act and gets to the island and gets to the adventure, I sat back and was like, wow, here's the feeling that you want for an adventure film, for an Uncharted film, where you care about the characters, have a funness for the action, feel the intensity of, are they going to make it? Are they going to escape? And actually have some kind of connection between Nathan Drake and Sully by the end, like within like the last 5 minutes, which is terrible, but it's at least gives a promising future for maybe a sequel. So
Yeah, very much. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I found it a fun movie to watch. Yes, Act One, Act Two are Act Two is probably the worst part of the film.
yes, I totally agree.
It's
And
the weakest. It's definitely the weakest element. Obviously, Act Three is the strongest because
strongest.
there is some environmental stuff that can compensate.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you want to do this sparingly. If you have too much environmental activity to balance out a bad script, then
You're just hiding the deficiencies of your own writing ability.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the directing, that third act saves the film because I would say the director Ruben Fleischer, who's famously known for the zombie films and the first Venom movie, He's able to add some kind of funness to a script that was probably in development um, stagnations for 14 years. So you could tell that he's trying his best. So I enjoyed it by the end. Tom Holland showcases why he's a great actor. Check out his other films if you haven't, outside of Spider-Man. And the third act at least gives it serviceable. You want to go to the film theater, go, but overall, 2 out of 5, it's at least worth a rental for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were as we were discussing this over dinner. To me, I would put this above watching Monster Hunter.
Oh yes, Monster Hunter was trash. Excuse my language, people, but yeah, Monster Hunter was
Monster
trash.
Hunter was definitely, but I would watch this one again before I watch Monster
I will
Hunter.
say this. Give your rating first.
Oh, I'm gonna give it a 3 because
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I found it a lot of fun.
I will say this. Like you mentioned, we mentioned in the car coming back, if they could fix the script with everything else, it can make it better. And there's a potential for better. So this is me hoping that the second one is better because I want to see a second one.
They greenlight a second one
I
so they can fix the first one.
think they will because it made a good chunk of money over the weekend. So
I mean, if the budget ratio was fine, then we're good.
Yeah.
But here's some now coming at this from the thing like you came at this from only from someone who's never played the games or seen how the story
I have it. Yeah,
played out.
I have an idea of the games, but you have more of an idea of the games than me.
I've gone through a few of them a couple of times. It's probably one of my favorite story franchises.
Yeah.
And this one had a lot of great nods and references to the games.
Yeah, you mentioned them to me.
Like the opening sequence of the movie is, with the exception of where it happens,
Yeah.
it's exactly kind of how Uncharted 2 opened, with Nathan waking up on a train dangling off the side of a cliff and having to climb the train to get to a point, and then it does the flashback to what led to the big train incident.
Yeah.
This one it has the big set piece from the third Uncharted game, where Nathan is on a cargo plane, and through a series of unfortunate events, the plane goes up in flames, and he falls out of the plane.
Well, he say, she say, may say, I don't know.
But I think a lot of the biggest stuff they forced in here was from the fourth Uncharted game, with introducing Nathan's brother Sam.
Yeah.
And in this one, they threw in Sam, and he was in there, but he was out. But it
was a plot point. I think it didn't serve the story, and it kind of weighed down the film because it didn't really.
And I think that's where a lot of this.
Yeah, it weighed it down. It weighed it down.
A lot of this is disjointed. Instead, we're telling a story of Nathan and Sully meeting.
Yeah.
And Sully apparently knew Sam prior, or that kind of thing. But okay, but it's this. It felt like, throwing in Chloe and throwing in Sam really kind of weighed down the film, because these are characters that come in, but they don't come in with enough gravitas.
Yeah, they're just there as plot points. They're just there to make Nathan and Sully meet. And and it's just like you mentioned, this might have been a better TV series, like they're doing with The Last of Us.
I think this shouldn't have been a film. I think this should have been a TV series,
which they did for The Last of Us, which
that could be arguably Last of Us would have done better as a film than a series.
Yeah,
but then again, the biggest thing is in the games. Even though most of the game stories, if you boil them down, are about 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of character growth and a lot of and some really great character interaction. You don't get the same thing in this 90-minute or this almost 2-hour film.
Yeah, 2 hours.
2 hours they had to tell this kind of story to bring you into the Uncharted world and get you hooked. Want to see what happens next. This one, it was too kind of busy. Another character I felt was really disserviced. That is the character that Antonio Banderas plays. Antonio Banderas has been around a minute.
Yeah.
And he can do a good villain. He's done it. I mean, he's played the villain off Sylvester Stallone a couple of times, and he's led some pretty great action franchises in the past. But
Santiago Moncada is his name.
In this one, it feels like it's like you don't. It's disjointed.
It it
It's
it,
very,
it
it's a very disjointed film. You jump from thing to thing, and then you have these turnabouts and turnabouts that go
yeah.
on where you're just like, where did that come from?
Yeah, like his
What
setup
inspired that?
his setup was only a matter to justify a certain twist, which kind of backfired because the twist of his own, spoiler alert, his death didn't make any sense because
No.
the lead up to that death, there was no lead up to the turn. There's
Yeah.
no lead up to the turn. So yeah, he was just there for a plot point, just to set up something for this interaction, which was never built up in the first place. So, like you said, disjointed. Elements are thrown in with no explanation. So
Yeah, it's not a very. I mean, not a very. I'm really wondering because I would love to see a copy of the script
yeah,
to see what was in it, and more. And I would also love to see
what was
was
cut out.
what was cut out on the cutting room floor because hey, you might have had 2 movies worth of story if you had more time with each of the characters.
Yeah,
But it did have some. But yes, it does have great set pieces. It does feel like an origin story type of experience.
very disjointed origin story.
Oh yeah, I mean, you get to see Nathan kind of go from the bartender to wearing his iconic look
yep,
by the end of the film,
yep.
and which is great. And if you're a fan of the games, there's a great cameo in there that is not that we're not going to spoil, but it is definitely probably one of the most meta jokes if you're a fan of the franchise. Um, it's just it overall though I enjoyed it, but compared to the games are much better with story development, and they have some pretty wild stories to begin with.
Yeah,
But from a character standpoint, you're not seeing like this. I really think if you could go back and redo this, maybe change this up, rearrange the characters, rearrange their stories a bit more. Sam is a nice element that definitely feels like it's a drop this now, pay it off later, but didn't pay it off quite so didn't work out quite so well, and he was way too convenient of a plot device.
yeah. It's just no.
I mean, he's literally the whole reason for the third act. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not telling
Watch
you
the
wrong.
film, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me Sam is not the key point of the whole third act. If it wasn't for Sam, there would be no third act. That's how disjointed this film.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because like I keep mentioning, everything was a plot point. You introduce, leave it to the side, and then bring it back when it's important to move the needle to a certain way.
Yeah.
So
That would have made the film much more enjoyable. Is if it felt more organic.
Yeah,
It didn't feel very organic.
no, it's just plop a point, move here.
Now,
Plop a point, move
keep
here.
in mind, this is not the worst video game adaptation we've seen.
It's not the worst movie I've ever seen
No,
either.
it's not a bad movie either. It's just if you're
It's a hollowness with it's a canvas with a couple good plot points, and then you miss the mark down here on the canvas.
now, I will say I do. We've talked about Tom Holland's characterization. We've talked about Antonio Banderas. Chloe, she doesn't feel. She definitely has the look and has some of the attitude, but there isn't the same kind of guarded vulnerability that you get from Claudia Black's
There's no
version
like
of Chloe in the games.
there's no really build up her character. She just
No,
shows up.
She shows up and shows up, couple of weird scenes, and then she's kicked out of the film for the rest of the film.
Yeah, she's just like diverted out of the third act completely.
And then for your final villain, who's this mercenary leader, it's like, what is going on with this craziness? Because that person has little to no setup. They're here. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know if I want to dignify her as the mustache twirling villain because there's literally nothing
Tati
to this
Gabrielle is the name of the character.
Yeah, there's literally nothing to this character.
There's nothing. She's just there, and she's just
Kind of feels like a bumbling idiot.
she's just the plot wall that to justify the character's existence of the hero. She's just there to justify the hero's existence.
Yeah,
Nothing else, nothing more.
there's some great interaction, but she literally has no.
Yeah, like why does she do what she did, and then in the end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think if we had more of a cerebral type of villain, like that's one of the things I liked about the games is the villains, the ultimate villain you deal with, they have elements to them that really kind of draw you in. This, it's like if they tried to do the same thing, they didn't give the person enough time to develop. There's no extra story to
Yeah,
really kind of build this character up.
it makes me think about a movie like Skyfall, where they build a backstory and connections to the characters. So by the time you get to the end, when certain deaths happen, there's a relevancy to it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just there. They're just there.
Yeah.
That's terrible script. I can't see them.
No, let's now for the last one on the list is Mark Wahlberg.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
You
There's
know
no
what?
Funky Bunch here.
He's got a good kind of charisma, but he does.
He has great charisma, but he's just, I think, miscast for this role. He just seems out of place for the character of Sully, and not from the games probably, but for the movie, it just feels out of place. He feels out of place for
He
for
looks. I mean, he feels like he's supposed to be the older kind of con man.
yeah.
He doesn't feel older than Drake.
He feels like he should be fighting out of South Boston. Uh, wink, wink.
A little too close to the nose there, but yeah, if you go through the games, Sully is a good 20 or in the game. Sully is a good 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, how old is it? I know, was it Tom Holland's like 20?
Tom Holland's like in his mid 20s. Wahlberg is in his 40s. So it doesn't, but it doesn't feel like there's that big of. Still doesn't feel like by the end of the film, and you see the final.
He's 50.
Yeah, he's 50. Okay, maybe that he just doesn't look it. But then again, we saw Spider-Man when we saw the Spider-Man in Civil War. It's like who'd have thought Melissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr., who are roughly the right age for the characters based on the comics, but they sure as heck don't look that
Yeah.
old.
Marissa Tomei can be my aunt. Mm.
Anyways, so great film, really kind of stuff. I think Mark Wahlberg's characterization, like he's got some great like comedic. There's some great comedic
Yeah,
lines.
he has some.
zingers.
He has some really good zingers. I'm not gonna, not as much as there's a negative, there's positives.
But it's the fact that he sounds the same in every role.
What you doing down in the sewer, boy? You know?
Yeah, it doesn't feel any different. Like
Did you find the treasure, boy?
I'm still to me, part of me was thinking it's like this is the same character I saw in Transformers.
It seemed like he was just playing like any other role I've seen him at, except for The Departed. So
Could be,
yeah,
could be. I don't know. Maybe we could see something better.
he got nominated for an Oscar for The Departed.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that in.
Yeah, he's just Marky Mark without the Funky Bunch.
Yeah. So, anyways, Uncharted. Go check it out if you want to check it out. Wait till it comes on rental later. But yeah,
I think it's going to be Netflix. If I remember correctly, Sony signed a deal with Netflix, so probably going to Netflix.
that's not too bad
That's if I remember correctly.
if you remember correctly. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's got a lot of potential. So I'm hoping for a good sequel.
I think the franchise has a lot of potential, but I think the fact it's been development purgatory for 10 years. I think the fact that overall the script was absolutely horrible
There's
and extremely disjointed.
there's multiple screenplay credits.
Yeah, so that's probably why
Six
it's so
people?
disjointed.
6 people. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. 6 people. But yeah. Speaking of watching, there's been a couple wrap-ups of shows
yeah.
that we've been watching, or at least I've watched 2 of them and you watched the one.
Yeah, I to be honest, as much as I like James Gunn, I wasn't really interested to watch Peacemaker.
Yep.
I didn't watch Peacemaker. Sorry.
But I did.
So you enjoyed it.
Yes,
How was the season?
The season overall is probably one of the best adaptations of a DC character I've seen to date. It's one of the best comic book TV series I've seen to date. The development on the characters, for me, when a story is that overarching connection, like you have the main overarching plot of Peacemakers teaming up with the Task Force S, well, forced the Task Force S by Amanda Waller, and they're fighting off this like alien invasion from the creatures called the Butterflies. So that's the overarching story, but like the underlying premise is building up which Uncharted was faulted for this, is the characters and the relationships and the dynamic between the team members is what makes this show so great and gratifying. And how you actually Peacemaker is a villain, but the way James Gunn does is write the character where you care about this crazy figure because of his backstory, his history, his childhood. As much as you resent him for what he did in the Suicide Squad movie, you realize why he's that way because of his father, who is a straight up, I can't use the terms here, but yeah, he's even worse than Peacemaker. So it justifies a lot of the things that he goes through and actually fleshes out his character and dynamic. And actually, James Gunn has found a way to rise John Cena up to being a very good lead man. So overall, it was a very great show. It did a lot of interesting cameos, which I told you about. And it fleshes out that idea of if you have a good story, you can lift the material above what you think it's going to be. And it's been greenlit for a season 2. So,
All right, well, we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll take a look.
yep.
The other series I wrapped up was Boba Fett.
Yep. The Book of Boba Fett.
Book of
Closed.
That was, I like that. I think we might have talked about that last episode.
We talked a lot about while eating wings.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I think that was great. It really does set up. It's a nice filler between season 2 and season 3 of The Mandalorian. Now that we're in that halfway kind of point, and it had a lot of great moments to set up more of this universe that Favreau and Filoni are building with the different shows. So next one on deck is going to be Kenobi, right?
Yeah, that's May 24th or 25th.
So we'll see Kenobi soon, and we'll see how that plays into things. It'll be great.
Yeah, Book of Boba Fett, I enjoyed it. There was some pacing issues here and there, but overall, it did go out with a bang and sets up a bigger world, which is something I keep complaining about Star Wars. It's time to expand. There's a lot of stories and characters.
So I got to ask you and ask the internet. Who else forgot about the Rancor?
I did forget about the Rancor when he left to go. I was completely thrown off guard, but it's because of the way the episode was designed, because it refocused you on the Mandalorian and the current fight that he was doing. So I was distracted by that instead of trying to figure out where he was going. So I forgot about it until he showed up. It's like, of course. Of course.
Yeah, we introduced this in like earlier episode. All of a sudden now it's like, oh, now we got him.
But that's a good sign of how you write a script. Uncharted. But yeah. So, what series are you think would be up on deck? You mentioned Obi-Wan coming up soon in a couple months.
We know Moon Knight will be dropping next month,
March 30th. I named a couple out there. Vikings Valhalla, which is the sequel series to Vikings, which drops on Netflix on Friday.
And Reacher on Amazon Prime,
which is an adaptation of the Reacher books, which I've heard very good things about from a lot of people, which people that hesitated going into it because of the movies, but when they started watching the show, they're like, it's a pretty dang good show. So
all right. We'll see how that runs out.
Yeah, I might check out 1, 2, or all 3. I'm gonna check out all 3 people. Why am I lying? But yeah, especially Vikings Valhalla. I love Vikings. So yeah.
Alrighty. So
games. We're both gaming.
Oh yeah, we got some games, some impressions, some addictions.
So
let's start with you and Pokemon
Arceus.
Arceus.
Yeah, Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's just it's just so amazing and just so engrossing how, like, once you drop into the world and the expansiveness of the story, so I'm starting to move into more of the regions and starting to get an understanding of the historical background of this area, the I forget what they call it, this certain area where you're in, and you're starting to learn about the interactions with the Pokemon and certain creatures. And the what's very cool is that the more you interact with the people of the land, and you start to venture out into some of the more dangerous areas where the Pokemon are, you start to see a very bigger lore, um such a bigger lore to the area and to the mythos of the characters. So you start to see that there's something tied into the spiritual nature of the area, and why certain Pokemon act certain ways, and why certain factions of this world um, celebrate certain creatures. So I actually got a mount. There's a Pokemon that you can get that you can use as a mount, but you got to win favor of the Pokemon. The Pokemon's not going to let you ride him until you do certain tasks. So you got to impress the spirit, kind of thing. So there's a very a natural element to everything. So it has like a pseudo-esque kind of like, Last Airbender kind of thing.
Hmm.
So very nomadic stylings, but at the same time, you're part of this research team trying to understand the world and the Pokemon and all this stuff. So, and the cool thing is just how you interact with the Pokemon. Like I mentioned before, you can run into certain areas. Oh, I can get this Pokemon, fight this Pokemon. And if you come across certain ones, the alpha Pokemon,
They're gonna miss.
That's an understatement. Like, they will mess you up. And if you're running, they will come running after you. You can't hide, you can't jump, you can't swim, because they will hide, jump, and swim with you. So, yeah. So overall, it's cool. I'm still in the main area, like, because there's so much stuff to do. It's one of those, like, you run, distraction. Oh, what's over there? Or what's this? It's kind of like playing Breath of the Wild, because, like, you'll be like, oh, what's over there? And you find this other Pokemon. I'm trying to catch, which is making me mad, because he always finds a way to escape me, is the Abra, which is the small form of Kadabra and Alakazam. Like, he goes and he's only in one area, so I have to time it at a certain time of day. And the time factors in depending on what Pokemon you'll see or find. So every time I try to get him, because there's different ways you can catch the Pokemon. Like, you can throw food out there, you can throw a rotten apple at his head and make him confused, whatever. But I throw a treat and I try to sneak up on him. And the last time I tried to fight him, he ran away. Throw a Pokemon bottle, he just was like, whatever. So, and then I have to like save and travel, come back, and then, yeah. And the cool thing is that the way you level up is by doing certain things for the certain Pokemon. So say like, let's just use Ponyta as an example. You have to do certain things, certain tasks for the research team to earn leveling up and earn badges. And when you earn these badges, it'll move you up where you can craft more material, can service higher level Pokemon. Because if you hit a certain level of your Pokemon and if you're not able to train past it, your Pokemon just act crazy and they will turn on you. So yeah, you got to do these certain things for the research team to level up. So it's a different leveling aspect instead of just going to gyms. You have to actually research and go out into the world and figure out things. So yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah. So that's why I think this is a dream come true playing this game. Yes. Yes. So, speaking of open worlds, you're in an open world as well.
Yes, I got my copy of Horizon Forbidden West at week Friday. Got my special edition, arrived in the mail, and it took me 3 or 4 days to open it up and get it up on the shelf.
Yep, that's a mighty fine specimen over there.
I had to figure out how I was going to put it. I was a little nervous that it wasn't going to fit on the shelf. But been playing that. I bought a digital copy for PS4 when I did my special order because I thought it was coming with a PS5 disc. It did not come with a disc. It came with a metal case.
Yeah.
It looks really cool that can hold the disc, but it did not come with a disc. It came with a code that you could use to redeem the game. And when you go to redeem the code, you have the option to redeem the 4 version or the 5 version. But if you redeem the 4 version, you get an automatic upgrade to the 5 version. If that made sense.
Yeah, it made sense to me.
So
no, it didn't.
I had pre-ordered a digital copy of PS4 edition. I had this download code, so I gave the code to my wife. So she She's playing it on PS4. I'm playing it on PS5, and we've been playing it pretty much every day since it dropped.
Yeah.
I'm just barely out of the tutorial area because the game is so open and you can go back and forth, completing quests and tasks and exploring. Very much, like they said, this was heavily inspired by Zelda and Breath of the Wild and some of these other open world kind of games. I mean, the shield glider, it's like, come on, we've seen that glider thing and whatnot, but it does really well. And the improvements they've made to this game are really great so far because the basic formula still works, but improving as we've seen with we're watching IGN and all these other places that are doing game reviews and discussions. Yes, they have improved the town environment. They have improved the side quest involvement. Like I had a side quest that I was working on that I finished this morning. That because I had done these other side quests and completed them, they were all referenced in this main side quest that I completed.
That's kind of cool.
So it kind of builds in a little bit like Witcher with, or some of these other games was like, if I follow this side quest to its conclusion, what impact will it have? And so that was really good. The characters are great. Um, there's definitely it's definitely feels like a continuation. Like the game, this one picks up literally 6 months after the events of the first game.
That's cool.
So you're picking up from there and you're kind of going through, and it's going to keep going because I am nowhere near San Francisco, but I know that's where the game takes place.
Yeah, well, that's all in the trailers and the ads.
Yeah, the trailer and the ads to San Francisco. I'm nowhere near San Francisco.
You're heading in that direction.
I'm heading in that direction. But to give you an idea how big this game is, right? I've got 12, 18 hours in. Maybe 9.
That's better than what I would do in that 12 hours.
Maybe I might be stretching it because I think it's definitely not a high completion rate, and there's a lot the new machines you find, the new interactions. There's definitely a heavier focus for melee combat. I'm getting kind of the point my gear, and they added there's leveling to the machines as well as to Aloy. So used to in the first game, yeah, the machines are all kind of baseline kind of deal, but you could keep leveling up. This one, you could actually encounter machines at different levels. And then some of the other subtle things they've added to this game, which are a lot of fun. Like if you play like I'm playing in the story mode, I'm focusing on the story and exploration. I don't want to be killed every 10 minutes because that's one of the things I like about the game. I'm more for the story and the casual play than, this hardcore adventurer type thing.
Yeah, I'm in the mix
But
between
they
it.
added some automation to the to the gameplay for these lower difficulty areas to really kind of help. Like there's an auto health regen, there's an auto deploy the glider, there's a couple of different automatics that go on, and then looking through the tutorial stuff and there's there was some tutorial information. Like there are elite machines that will come out if you spend too much time in an area, wiping out the normal variants.
That's kind of funny, actually.
And
That's
they
kind
can
of cool.
come out more frequently at night.
That's funny.
They're a different color layout, and they're going to be more kind of elite kind of deal. So it's like that's kind of cool, and whatnot. Then you have these fighting pits to work your melee, to improve your melee. The skill trees are definitely up there with the different ways of earning skills and working through skills. I haven't used the Valor yet because I'm a distance person. I'm at
Okay.
range.
You like the range.
I like range, and I will decimate at range. And it's like definitely, but I'm going so slowly that I'm leveling out. Like I'm typically half to 5 to double 5 levels up or double the mission level right now because going through it slowly, methodically, and no stone unturned, no bush ignored.
So the whole meaning before behind Forbidden West is like an area that people aren't supposed to navigate to.
According to the politics of the game, your tribes that were in Yellowstone and the surrounding areas of Utah, that area, because that's where Aloy's first, yeah, that's where the first game kind of focuses on.
Yeah.
Is there's a set of there's tribes out west, and they were so violent that there was the border from east to west was was closed down, where that's why for the east they all call it the Forbidden West, because these tribes were so dangerous, nobody knew what was going on, it was so violent. Well, apparently Aloy has to go that direction to follow Silas, who is the who because he's up to something, because she's figured out that he, took advantage. He basically betrayed her or took advantage of her or deceived her, and now she's got to track that down to find out what's up, so she can figure that out, and then she can figure out how to reset the Zero Dawn project and get Gaia back online before the whole terraforming system spirals completely out of control.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But it's definitely lays the port where you want to be going back to the starting area to accomplish things, because it's already showing you areas of the map that you need special tools for that you haven't gotten yet.
I like that. I like when they do that.
And there's so many more quests and activities this time around. Like in the first game, you had your bandit camps, you had your side quests, you had your mission quests, and then you had a couple of errands.
Yeah.
This one, it's like I've got those four plus the hunting grounds are back. They've got salvage missions you can do to earn gear and equipment, um, work jobs, and all these other things. So really like cook stuff, working with cooking. I mean, it had a nice element that as I saw it play out, I was thinking Monster Hunter, and that's where you first time you go and deal with a chef in a town, and he cooks up something for you. It really did kind of feel like, okay, where's the Palicos, sitting there cooking, and the dude who puts the garnish on at the end. But overall, good. Overall, I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great time killer, especially when it's like, okay, I know I'm not going to dive into a big quest. Like tonight when we get done, I'm probably going to take care of a bandit camp that I've been eyeballing, that I'm right position and whatnot. And then after that, it's like, 90 minutes exploring the world, grabbing some machine parts. That's a great way to spend a morning coffee.
Yeah, so it's definitely a game you can drop in and out. So
Oh yeah, totally.
that's what's up.
Alrighty, so that's that. Great game. Looking forward to seeing how it goes
And
and seeing how
eventually,
my
I might
progression.
that might be a game I pick up when I get a PS5.
You
But
got Elden Ring coming out next week, man. Why are you gonna have time to do that?
actually, it's Friday. It
Oh,
comes out
okay.
Friday.
Elden Ring's coming out this week.
Yeah,
When are you
so
gonna find time to do that when you're gonna go through a Dark Souls game?
I will find time.
Okay.
But I have spring break coming up, so that means I'll have some nights where I don't have to read. Hey, I got a week to not do schoolwork, so
That's fair. And it's
it gets tiring to read books, like,
Oh,
so.
oh yeah.
Unless it's interesting, like, you didn't think a book about elephants would be interesting, but it's pretty interesting. So,
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think that about wraps us up for this week. Stay tuned. If you are a Patreon member, head on over to Patreon. You can check the after show live show or the after show recording. Everyone else, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like. If you're new, hit the subscribe. We're almost to 100. We're almost to the next tier of YouTube goodness. So help me out, please.
like, subscribe,
Like, subscribe,
tell everybody about us, people.
share it out. It's all good. Thank you again, Sirenscape, for the background music soundboards that you heard whenever we're not talking. Thank you to Ry for providing some great commentary and movie reviews for us to discuss. And thank you all wonderful people for watching us and supporting us however you're doing that. Every bit helps, every bit's appreciated. And stay safe, love each other, do all those fun things, and we will see you on our next. Hi everybody.
Peace.